In New Zealand, the average homeowner has more than 70% of their total net worth sitting in the walls of the house they live in. Not in a KiwiSaver fund, not in shares or bonds or term deposits. In a building that does not pay you $1 of income. A building that costs you money. Every single week you own it in rates, insurance, and maintenance. A building that, if you are retired or approaching retirement, is quietly strangling your financial future while you sit inside it telling yourself you are doing well because the property valuation went up. This is what financial planners call being house rich and cash poor. And in 2026, it is the single most common threat I see to a comfortable retirement in New Zealand. Not the share market, not inflation, not even the cost of healthcare. The family home, the asset you were told to be proud of, the asset that an entire generation of New Zealanders sacrificed holidays and savings to pay off. The asset that is, right now, trapping your wealth in timber and concrete while your bank account slowly empties and your options quietly close. By the end of this video, I am going to show you exactly how to calculate whether your home is working for you or against you, what it is actually costing you to stay in it, and the practical steps that free up your equity and turn it into income before your health or the market makes that choice for you. My name is Arthur. I work as a retirement income and financial planning specialist based in New Zealand. This channel, Retire Smart NZ, covers the financial decisions that matter most to New Zealanders in and approaching retirement. If this is your first time here, subscribe now. Every video is built on real New Zealand numbers and real New Zealand law. Here is what we cover today. First, the New Zealand wealth trap, why our obsession with property leaves most retirees cash poor before they reach 75. Second, the real cost of staying in the family, home rates, insurance, maintenance, and the opportunity cost most people never calculate. Third, the 5-year early rule and why the timing of your decision matters as much as the decision itself. Fourth, the downsizing calculation, the actual numbers on what freeing up equity does to your annual retirement income. Fifth, the modern equity liberation strategies available to New Zealanders in 2026. And sixth, 2 case studies, one couple who stayed too long and one woman who moved at the right time, and what the numbers look like for each of them. Let us start with the problem. New Zealand is one of the most property-concentrated wealth cultures in the developed world. According to data from the Reserve Bank of New Zealand and Statistics NZ, New Zealand households hold approximately 72% of their net wealth in owner-occupied residential property. To put that in perspective, the equivalent figure in Australia is around 58%. In the United Kingdom, it is around 54%. In the United States, closer to 45%. This is not an accident. It is the result of decades of policy, culture, and lived experience that told New Zealanders that owning your home outright was the definition of financial security. For much of the 20th century, that was largely true. Property was affordable relative to incomes, it appreciated reliably, and the cost of holding it was manageable on a single wage. In 2026, the situation is different in 2 critical ways. First, properties are no longer cheap. The median house price in Auckland is in excess of $900,000. In Wellington, above $700,000. In Christchurch, above $600,000. For people who bought 20 or 30 years ago, this means that a large proportion of their net worth has accumulated in their property almost passively. That sounds like success, but wealth that is locked inside a building you live in is not income, it does not pay for groceries, it does not cover medical expenses, it does not fund a holiday, a grandchild's education, or a rest home down the track. It sits there. The second change is that holding costs have risen dramatically. Rates have increased significantly across most New Zealand councils over the past decade. Insurance premiums have risen even faster, driven partly by reinsurance costs and partly by the actuarial reclassification of New Zealand's natural hazard risk. On a large family home in Auckland or Wellington in 2026, the combined annual cost of rates, insurance, and basic maintenance can easily reach $20,000 per year. That is almost $400 per week simply to hold an asset that pays you nothing. Let me show you what I mean with real numbers. Take a 4-bedroom house in Papakura, Auckland. Current value, $950,000. The owners are a couple in their late 60s who have paid it off. They have 2 grown children who left home years ago. They use 2 of the 4 bedrooms. The house is comfortable. They feel financially secure because they own it outright. Here is what that house is actually costing them. Auckland council rates on a property of this value, approximately $7,800 per year. Building and contents insurance, approximately $4,500 per year. Annual maintenance, gutters, garden, weatherproofing, hot water cylinder, periodic painting, flooring, plumbing, conservatively $8,000 per year. That is $20,300 per year, $590 per week, every week, to live in an asset that generates zero income. Now here is the number they never calculated. $950,000 invested in a balanced, diversified fund, returning 6% per year, generates $57,000 per year. That is the opportunity cost of the equity locked in their home. They are not earning it. They cannot spend it. And they do not experience it as a loss because it is invisible, a return that never arrived rather than a cost that was paid. Combined, the holding cost of $20,000 and the opportunity cost of $57,000, this couple is effectively consuming $77,000 of value per year to stay in a 4-bedroom house they half occupy against a NZ Super payment of approximately $45,000 per year for a couple. The mismatch is significant. The asset feels like security. The numbers tell a different story. Let me give you the first case study. Graham is 68 and Wendy is 66. They have lived in their Remuera home for 26 years. The house is worth $1,300,000. They own it outright. They have $80,000 in KiwiSaver between them and approximately $40,000 in savings. Their combined NZ Super is around $880 per week, $45,760 per year. When I first met Graham and Wendy, they told me they felt financially comfortable. They had the house, they had Super, they had a bit in the bank. What they had not done was the calculation. Their annual holding costs: rates $9,200, insurance $6,000, maintenance $11,000, total $26,200 per year. That consumed 57% of their super income before they spent $1 on food, transport, healthcare, or anything else. Within 4 years, their KiwiSaver and savings were exhausted. They were drawing equity through a reverse mortgage. By the time Graham needed full-time care at age 74, the reverse mortgage had consumed $240,000 in compounding interest and fees. The house had to be sold. The retirement they believed they had secured sitting inside $1.3 million worth of property delivered a fraction of what they had imagined. Graham and Wendy are not exceptional. I see versions of their story regularly. The trap is not the house. The trap is the assumption that a high-value, unproductive asset equals financial security. Now let us talk about timing, because the timing of a downsizing decision is almost as important as the decision itself. The most important insight I can offer is this. The best time to downsize is 5 years before you think you need to. There are 3 reasons. First, the property market. Selling when you are not under pressure gives you time to wait for the right buyer and negotiate properly. People who sell because they must after a health event, after cash flow becomes critical, after a death in the family consistently achieve lower prices than people who sell from a position of choice. Second, your health. A home transition requires physical and emotional energy. Packing, sorting decades of possessions, coordinating a move, settling into a new environment. All of this is significantly easier at 64 than at 73. Every year you wait, the logistical cost of moving increases. Third, the market has shifted in your favor. In 2026, well-built, low-maintenance apartments and townhouses in desirable locations across New Zealand are not a compromise. They are, in many cases, outperforming traditional suburban family homes in both value retention and lifestyle quality. New high-density precincts in Auckland, Wellington, and Christchurch offer maintenance-free living, proximity to healthcare, walkability, and community at a price point $200,000 to $400,000 below the family home being vacated. Selling 5 years before you have to means selling with options. That changes the entire financial outcome. Now let me show you the downsizing calculation because this is where theory becomes money. Take a couple who sell a family home worth $1,050,000 and purchase a 2-bedroom apartment in a well-located complex for $580,000. After transaction costs, real estate fees, legal fees, moving costs, they free up approximately $430,000 in net equity. $430,000 placed into a balanced investment fund, returning 6% per year, generates $25,800 per year without touching the capital. Combined with NZ Super of $45,760, their total annual income becomes $71,560. That is $1,376 per week. Before the move, after holding costs, their effective spendable income was closer to $350 per week. The downsizing decision, in this example, increases their effective weekly income nearly 4 times. without working, without taking on debt, without any change in their super entitlement. The only variable is whether they make the decision. Let me give you the second case study. Helen is 64 years old. She lives alone in Christchurch following her divorce. She owns a 4-bedroom home worth $820,000 outright. She has $120,000 in KiwiSaver and $16,000 in savings. Helen came to me not because she was in crisis, but because she had done some reading and realized she had never actually calculated her numbers. We went through them together. Annual holding costs. Rates, $5,400. Insurance, $3,800. Maintenance, $7,200. Total, $16,400 per year. Her NZ Super as a single person, approximately $29,120 per year. After holding costs, her net available income was $12,720 per year, $244 per week for everything. Food, transport, healthcare, clothing, everything. Her KiwiSaver was being drawn down to bridge the gap, and at that rate would run out within 10 years when Helen was in her mid-70s. Helen sold the Christchurch home for $815,000. She purchased a 2-bedroom townhouse near Riccarton for $345,000. After all costs, she freed $452,000 in equity, invested in a balanced fund at 6%. That generates $27,120 per year. Added to her super, her total income is now $56,240, $1,082 per week. Her holding costs on the townhouse, rates $1,800, body corporate $2,400, insurance $1,600, total $5,800 per year, a saving of $10,600 on holding costs alone compared with the old house. Helen is now 71. Her invested capital has grown to $538,000. She takes 2 overseas trips per year. She has not touched her KiwiSaver. The Christchurch home she sold is now worth $930,000. People ask whether she regrets selling. Her answer is always the same. She went from $244 a week to $1,082. There is nothing to regret. For those who are not ready to sell, there are other strategies worth understanding. A reverse mortgage allows you to borrow against your home's equity without monthly repayments, with the loan and accumulated interest repaid when you sell or pass away. They can be useful as a bridging tool, but they are not a substitute for long-term income planning. Compound interest on a reverse mortgage can erode equity significantly over a long retirement, and the amount remaining in your estate can be much less than you expect. Rent vesting, selling the family home, investing the freed capital, and renting a property that suits your current life is another option some retirees find genuinely useful. The cost of renting a 2-bedroom apartment in most New Zealand cities is materially lower than the holding cost of a large family home, and the capital works for you while you occupy a home suited to where you actually are in life. Equity release through structured sale and leaseback arrangements also exists in New Zealand, though it carries complexity and independent legal advice is essential before entering any such arrangement. In all of these cases, the underlying principle is the same. Equity locked in a non-yielding primary residence is not working for your retirement. The question is not whether to unlock it, but how and when. Let me leave you with a practical framework. In months 1 to 3, do the calculation, get an up-to-date valuation, add up your real annual holding costs, calculate the opportunity cost of your equity at 6%. Be honest about what you find. In months 4 to 6, explore what a replacement property would cost in your preferred area. Understand the net equity you would free up after all transaction costs. In months 7 to 12, talk to an independent financial advisor about how to structure freed capital, your investment risk profile, your KiwiSaver options, and what a sustainable annual drawdown looks like over a 20 to 30 year retirement. In months 13 to 18, if the numbers support the move, begin the practical preparation. Declutter. Identify what you genuinely need in a smaller home. Have the conversations with your family that need to happen. In months 19 to 24, make the move from a position of choice before any health event or market shift creates pressure. The 24-month timeline exists because good decisions made without pressure deliver better outcomes than good decisions made under stress. The family home is not your enemy. But in 2026, it is the single asset most likely to trap your retirement wealth in a form you cannot spend while the years in which you could have used that wealth pass quietly by. Make the decision before the decision is made for you. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Retire Smart NZ for more videos built on real New Zealand numbers. I am Arthur. Take control of your retirement.